Welcome to Coming to New England. My name is Miguel Dominguez, and my guest is Elizabeth Vial, my professor from Rhode Island College. Thank you for being here.
According to the DMV, Elizabeth Janet Eaton Vial, but normally it's just Elizabeth Vial. I was born in western Pennsylvania in a small town that was the largest town in the county in 1954, so now everybody's doing the math on how old I am. But I was born in what essentially is a fairly rural area, small town, but it was really nice. It was a good place to grow up. My mother's family came over in the late 1600s, made their way in part through Virginia and Tennessee and down to Texas, but also through New York State, out the Erie Canal and down into western Pennsylvania. My father, on the one side, is a Mayflower descendant. On the other hand, his father came over here from England when he was 10 years old. So it's a real mix. There were closets, big closets in every room. My grandmother designed it, and she wanted to have walk-in closets in every single room, which was really kind of cool. And it was positioned in such a way that we had a view of the valley and we could see weather coming through, which was always kind of cool. We'd go inside before the rain hit, but you could see the storms coming down. It was neat. I think I have a vague memory of being in a playpen with a friend, but the one that I think I remember best was probably waking up from a nap and seeing my wallpaper, which had spacemen on it. My father was very outgoing. He could talk with anyone about everything. He loved to cook. The thing he lived by was the saying, "Judge not lest ye be judged," and he treated everyone equally, but he had a lot of fun. And he played piano by ear, and so he could be very entertaining that way. My mother could get very serious sometimes, but also really passionate about things. So that the idea, for instance, on a church committee of, well, John Wesley used to visit prisoners in jail, so I think we should too. So they go to visit the local prisoners in the jail, and they discover that county jail was really awful. And that turned into an ecumenical committee to improve conditions that turned into a county committee and eventually a new jail. She just was that passionate about it, which is something I always admired. I was in band, so I was in marching band in high school. I also at summer camp had learned to play guitar, and I was in a folk group, and Vatican II came along, so we did folk masses every other week, but then we also did some other just gigs as a group. So that was kind of what I did. Bell-bottoms were big when they came in. And my sister was living in New York, and we went to visit her, and I got bell-bottoms 6 months before anybody else in town, which was the wicked cool. Yeah, neighbor jackets were big for a while as a style. I grew up in the late 60s, so it was everything associated with that. It just took an extra 6 months or a year to make it to my hometown. I was raised Methodist.
What church did you attend?
It was First United Methodist Church, which actually my grandparents and my great-grandparents had both gone to. Thomas Wilson Vial. We actually met at Channel 12. I had gone to graduate school, kept track of a boss that I had in Rochester while I was in graduate school. He had a job opening when I finished, so I ended up here. And we had interns. And Tom actually was a student here at Rhode Island College in communications and film. So he had an internship at WPRI. And, we kept track. I went up to Maine, came back down, and actually ran into him on the street one day. I was then working at Cable TV of East Providence, and I think he'd graduated, Rick, by then. He was looking for a job. and I said we might have a part-time position open. There were some delays just because the hiring person got very sick and it put a delay on everything. But he ended up coming to work there. So we were working together, and then things blossomed from there. Initially, when we were only sort of kind of dating, it was going to Greg's restaurant for nachos with salsa on the side and a half carafe of wine. And then after that, generally it was movies, and then we'd talk about them afterwards. We'd go up to Lincoln Dog Track because you get in for $2 and the bets are $2 and you can have a really cheap night. And if you do really well at the races, you might win enough to pay for coffee and something at Bickford's afterwards. That was one of my 2 best Christmases.
Really?
He was decorating his tree and he hands me the angel to put on top of the tree. And of course I was thick enough I didn't notice the angel was holding a ring. So he had to pull it down off the tree. And it's, he actually went down on one knee. And I think my reply was, of course, silly. I suspected. And, you do the test and it's like, okay, here we go. Because you really have no idea if or not. And it's like, great, here we are. I started out of college writing for my local radio station. And after 3 years, I couldn't write the same ads for the same women, the same lines of women clothing for 4 different stores and make them sound different. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I ended up moving up to Rochester, New York, where it took me probably 9 months, but I finally got a job at a TV station there. I'd already been told, well, if you just had a few courses. So I went back and got my graduate degree and had kept track of my boss there. And that's how I landed in television as opposed to radio. I produced newscasts here and produced newscasts up in Maine. If you do that, you're essentially working a second shift job because it's the 11 o'clock news that you're heading to. And I wanted my life back. But I still liked video. Mm-hmm. So I found a job down here in cable in local programming where I could use the video, I could be part of media, and yet have a life. And that's what I did for the next 20 years, and then I morphed into teaching, but in communications and media. I think the Kennedy assassination, that's when I first kind of saw something outside myself. I was a kid, so I didn't know how to process the politics of it. That was a complete mystery to me. But this guy who'd been shot had a daughter, and she was a little bit younger than me. And that's how I related to it. I still like the classic definition, although there are those that say it no longer exists. I think if there is something that you want to do, the options are there, they are available to you. You might have to look a little harder to find them. It's up to you to do the work to get there. If you work hard, you can do it. If it's something that matters to you, you can do it. So I think it is work hard, be responsible for your own success, and you can make it here.
It has been a pleasure to interview today. Thank you again for being here. This is Miguel Dominguez, and you have been watching Coming to New England.